Hey, this is RJ May, and you're watching Mr. Mario 2011.
Hey, so what is going on, everyone? It is me, Mr. Mario, and this is just a bit of a random topic I want to talk about, but today I'm going to be talking about how do games get out early, or how are games released early, whatever it is. Now, I know a lot of you might be saying, well, Mario, they get online early. That happens all the time. I know that. I'm not going to be talking about that. Now, in case you don't know, that is just leaking when that occurs. That's just when somebody's able to get a game early. They post it up online, cracked, patched, whatever it is, and it's able to run early, most of the time. I'm not talking about that. I'm going to be talking about, getting that original, that first copy, that initial copy of that game, how exactly it works. Because this always fascinates me, and it's always kind of interesting to see, and a lot of people might not know this. Now, this isn't going to be, an end-all, be-all blanket answer, but this is going to be kind of the overarching thing, I guess you can say. The common theme for what I've seen for most of these. Now, I mean, I've seen this happen for over 10 years, so it really varies, but I'm going to be covering games mostly, but, it used to happen a lot more with, it happens with everything, but it used to be crazy with movies, music, all that, that's why anti-piracy, organizations, rules, all those laws, all those things, they got tuned and, amplified by a lot. Due to the fact that, leaking was a lot worse before. I mean, people were leaking out, movies that were stolen off people's desks 3 months before they even hit theaters. So, I mean, that used to be a regular occurrence at one point. Now, it's not like that as much, but this is going to be more, getting that initial copy, at least when it comes to games. So, first off, I mean, where does this start off? Now, I've seen it happen worldwide. I'm in the US, obviously, but most of the time, I mean, it happens on the East Coast, from what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying it's completely limited to that, and the reason why I'm bringing this up as well is because I remember a while ago, this is years ago, when I was in high school, I was working at a video game store. And even after that, there was another game store that was opened up by somebody who used to work for us, so we were kind of competing with them. And I was talking with my boss, and it was funny because there was one time he was just like, well, there's this new game that's supposed to be coming out, but this other guy just said on his Facebook page that he doesn't have the shipment, and the shipment got delayed, and it's not coming in today because of, I think it was all of the hurricanes or something. It happened in New York. It was when there was some real bad stuff going on. But he was saying, yeah, he's blaming it on New York, and I think he's full of BS. I think he just wasn't able to get his copies somehow. And I was like, well, man, I mean, if he's getting them from New York, it makes sense. And he's like, well, Danny, no, that doesn't make any sense, because where do they make all the games, like the discs? They press them in China. So they're going to come from China, so they're going to go from China to California. They're going to come from the West Coast, not the East Coast. And I was just thinking, looking at it on a map, logistics-wise, I guess, yes, on pen and paper, that makes sense. But from what I know, because I know people who've been able to secure copies of games for years, really early, even earlier, even before they leaked out online, I'm just like, no, actually, out of all the people I know that normally get their hard copies of games early, they're from New York. And if they're not from New York, they're from somewhere on the East Coast. Most of the time, they source out of New York, though, if you're in the US. Now, normally, how does this happen? Well, there might be times where, I don't know, some people, I'm sure, have tried to bribe other GameStop, GameStop employees, Best Buy employees, Walmart employees, whatever it is. Well, here's the truth to the matter. Most of the time, I'd say like 95% of the time, even higher than that, you're not going to be successful in trying to bribe an employee and see if you could get an early copy of a game from an employee. It's normally not going to work like that. And reason being is these people care about their jobs, and they'd be breaking, a whole bunch of, street rules, dates, probably even some laws here, and it might not even be against the law most of the time. But, if a company, let's say, like Bungie, they release a game, and then, like Destiny, for example, let's say Destiny was coming out, and all of a sudden, they found one store was selling copies of the game 3 weeks in advance. Well, that store can get in some big trouble from the publishers, from the developers, from all those people. And the people working there, they don't want to lose their job. So more than likely, if you find somebody that you can bribe easily to get a copy of a game early, they probably don't care about their job too much. They don't really care about the well-being. I mean, hell, they might even be on the point of getting fired. They're just like, you know what, I'm going to be leaving here soon anyway. Sure, you want to give me $20 to get a copy of Call of Duty early? Okay, we're done here. But most of the time, that's not how it works. Normally, what happens is these games get sourced out from little mom and pop shops. And what I mean by that is, just local stores here and there, just stores that aren't big GameStops, aren't Best Buys, anything like that. And the reason why they do this is because normally they can sell the game early, and sometimes they can even mark it up a little bit. But if they sell the game early, that's a lot of easy business they can get. Like, let's take the new Call of Duty, for example, right? New Call of Duty game comes out. Now, what if there was a store? What if I told you, it's just like, well, you know what? You could wait until Tuesday to get the game, but I know of a little store, about a 20-minute drive away from here, that's actually selling copies of the game a week early for the same price. Now, what would you do? More than likely, if it's the same price and it's not that hard to get, you would probably say, well, hell, I'm going to go get the game a week early, right? That's how they get people in the door. Because let's face it, once the game is officially released, there's not much of a reason to go to those mom and pop shops unless they have a discount on the game or unless you really want to support them. But most of the time, the majority of consumers are going to go to a Walmart, a GameStop, a Best Buy, a bigger store, a corporate store. Most of the time, they're not going to purchase the game from a mom and pop shop, especially since most of the time, those bigger stores, those corporate stores will have, midnight launch events. They'll have bonuses. They'll have things like that. So, as I said, the mom and pop shops, what do? Well, if they get some games 2 weeks early, sometimes they'll start selling those games about a week and a half or 2 weeks early, and they know what they're doing. And the reason why I say that is because normally on the boxes and on the cases and all that, like, you don't see it that often on cases as much, but I remember, like, Halo 3, for example, that was a huge launch. I remember you could go to stores, and if you, like, found copies of the game when it first came out, they had a yellow, no, it wasn't yellow, it was an orange sticker on the top of them that said, do not sell before this date. And it clearly says right there, they cannot sell it before this date, or sometimes it even says that you cannot open it before this date. Now, yes, there are going to be some people that sell it, some people that don't, some people that open it, some people that don't, you can't really control it that much. But there are even other stores, that have these safeguards put in place. Walmart, for example, I know there's been several times, not my local Walmart, unfortunately, I'd really like it if they did this, but there are several Walmarts where accidentally their employees will put out games a week or two early. However, Walmart has kind of a fail-safe in there where even if you see the game in the counter, like let's say it was Call of Duty again, let's say you see that your local Walmart is selling it a week early, you can go and grab an employee and say, yes, I want that game out of the case. They open up the case, they take it up to the register, but when they scan it, what happens? Well, there is a system in there that pretty much brings up an error message and it says, you cannot sell this item before this date. And then the employee will see that. Most of the time, the employees really don't even know or care. Well, care as in, an employee's not going to be like, oh my god, Call of Duty, we can't be selling this to you, before they scan it. But after they scan it, they see that message and they're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, my system here will not let me sell you this game. So there are some stores that have those fail-safes set up. There are other stores like GameStop, for example, that specialize in video games that they already know. I don't think they have any fail-safes like that. They might, but all of their employees are fully aware of all of the titles' release dates, so nothing like that is going to be happening anytime soon. But yeah, at least for the US, that's pretty much how it's covered. So as I said, most of the time, these mom and pop shops can have, their prices raised a little bit. Most of the time, no. They're going to sell a $60 game for $60. They'll sell it a few weeks early, just to get some more people in the door because they know that's how it's going to be a hot sale. I mean, I know somebody up in New York. I don't know exactly where he is, and he moved to Washington eventually. But apparently I remember this is in like 2009, he got like every game early. He got like Gears of War 2 early, like 2 weeks early. He got Modern Warfare 2. I want to say a week and a half early, and he was actually lazy on that. Apparently, he could have gotten it like 3 weeks early, but he was just really lazy and just decided to wait on it. But his friend had told me that I was really good friends with. His friend had told me that this guy was going to like a local store to pick up all of his games. Well, quote unquote local. This store was a little mom pop shop and it was about an hour away. So he would drive an hour there, get the game, drive an hour back. But, I mean, an hour drive both ways, that's not that bad. I've driven plenty of trips like that. And if it's a game that you really want and you can get it at least a week early, well, hell, I might be spending some gas money on that personally. I mean, doesn't sound like that bad of an idea, to be honest. But yeah, that's normally how it works out. A friend of mine in Kuwait, though, then when it comes to like other places in the world, he also gets like all of his games early. And I believe he knows some people. He's not in cahoots, but he's really, really good friends with people who, own video game shops and all that. But even him and other friends I know in Kuwait, they've told me, they're like, yeah, and these are like these are legitimate games. These aren't pirated. They aren't bootleg games, anything like that. Because in the Middle East, I'm saying that because in the Middle East, like I myself, I'm Arab. I've been to the Middle East. I've been to Jordan several times. Piracy is rampant in the streets, man. It's crazy. But these are legitimate games I'm talking about. And my friends over there, they're telling me, they're like, yeah, release dates, we don't have a thing called release dates. The release date is when the store gets it in stock. Pretty much when the store gets the shipment of games, they don't care about what the street date is or what the release date is. They bust the box open and start selling the games immediately. They don't care. And the funny thing is, these are normally like American copies of games. These are NTSC, these are PAL copies of games, because there's no localized standard really over there. So, you have NTSC systems, you have PAL systems. So, I mean, a lot of the time, and it's funny because a lot of the times, there will be games that get released over there even before they get put online, which is really funny to see. So it depends on other parts of the world. In the US, most of the time, it's kind of that shady stuff, but in other parts of the world, they don't care about release dates. The release date is when they get the game physically in the store. That is when the release date is. But yeah, then when it comes to internal leaks, anything like that, it doesn't happen too often. Now, occasionally it might, like I know Halo 4, for example, that was a really big leak. That leaked out online about a month before, and the original source of that was, I believe it was from the pressing company. One of the companies that was pressing the game, apparently there was a guy who was able to get a copy of the game, and that is why these companies, like game developers, publishers, places that press games, anything like that, they try so hard to put all these security standards in there because a leak is all you need. Like, if you have one person, for example, the Xbox 360, if one of those copies of the game leaves a facility weeks early and it somehow gets into the hand of someone who knows how to flash a drive, they can just flash 800 custom firmware to a drive, rip the game over, and then upload it online, and that's it. It's leaked out. So that's why there's such tight security on these things. But no, that's happened several times, and I think one of my favorite leaks I have seen was, this is back when I was in, this is Halo 2, so this is when I was in 6th grade, that was it. I remember that game leaked out about it was a month and a half or 2 months in advance, and I remember what happened was it actually got stolen off a server. There was pretty much a build that was available. It was on like some Microsoft or some Bungie affiliated French server somewhere. Apparently someone went in there, downloaded the entire game, and I remember they announced it and they said, yeah, we were able to get a copy of Halo 2, however, it is not playable in its current state. And I believe like a day or two later, they ended up going into, not the source code, but pretty much they went into the game itself, and they were able to, rebuild the XBE files and all that a little bit, so, because I believe originally it could only run on dev kits, and then they were able to rebuild it so that you could run it on a modified original Xbox. And then they put it up online, and that was it. So I remember that was interesting to see because that was like, jacked directly from those servers, from a publisher or developer's servers. And I'm sure it sucks for developers, man. It really does. But at the same time, it's fascinating to see all of this. But I remember there was one video, and if anybody can find me this video, I just want to watch it for nostalgia purposes. It was from like a glitching site that I used to visit sometimes. This is in like 2004, okay, everyone? But I remember the video, it started off with like a monologue, and it started off as challenge, defy me. And it was a guy going off into a monologue, and then it started like leading in, like segueing into the Halo theme song, you know, with the monks chanting and everything. And the video itself, it showed a guy, like, it was recorded on screen. The guy booted up his Xbox, and it was a custom dashboard. It was modified, and he went into his hard drive and found the Halo 2 file and then started running it. So it had like the intro boot up sequence and everything. And then it showed like, you know, it was just kind of a compilation, you know, like a music video montage of some of the cool moments from the first few levels. So for example, when like Chief blows up the Scarab for the first time and everything, that was really epic to people. I was just like, yep, I saw that 2 months ago. I knew it was going to happen. So I remember that was really funny to see, and that was funny at least for me. But that's normally how it happens. So I covered it a little bit worldwide, but in short, normally mom and pop stores, you know, places outside of the US that don't really adhere to, not copyright law, I guess you can kind of say that, but, you know, street dates, release dates, anything like that. Normally, that's how that original source is going to get out. And sometimes, you know, it could be stolen from internal sources, but that doesn't happen that much. So I hope you all learned something from this commentary. I hope this helped you all out a little bit, and I hope it entertained you all. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you for watching, everyone.